I'm going to yield to Mr. Payano, who has a presentation. And we need to get out of the way.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the people that went on the tour through the Oliver and the STS, we felt like pictures needed to be taken of sort of what we saw, just because we were just so astonished about the state of the building and what was going on, and that these pictures needed to be presented to the school committee members. That way they understand sort of what we saw. So what began that day, 8:30 in the morning, I entered the Oliver School, was just to take a picture of the wall. As a school committee member, and probably just as someone that people know is active in the city, I received phone calls, Facebook messages, and at a previous event, alumni were coming up to me asking me what happened. So I felt, well, before I go to work, let me just see if I could take a quick picture. And I went in, not as a school committee member, but just as a graduate. You know, the thing had been done. I felt sad about it. I felt angry, but what I wanted to do was just let people know that this is what it was. That way, you didn't have 100, 200 people coming into the building at random times trying to figure out what happened. Before I went in, I had heard from my sister that she was sort of basically felt like she was kicked out of the school. And I heard from other alumni as well that they weren't let into the building and they were treated wrongly. So I went in, suit and tie, you know, just because I don't have enough time to deal with things, thinking if I dress in a suit and tie, there won't be a problem. I'm either gonna take a picture now, or someone's gonna say, Pavel, come at 4 o'clock, and you can take a picture then. I entered the school, and that is not what I received. Going into the school, and I'm not gonna, mention. I mean, if school committee members want to know names, I will. But even though I wasn't given any respect, I'm gonna give respect back, and I'm not gonna say the name of the assistant principal in public. But throughout the conversation, when I went in there, I felt like I was being yelled at. I felt like I was about 5 years old and my dad was yelling at me because I took a cookie. I give the hugest, props to my sister and congratulations to her that she was able to hold a conversation, because honestly, I looked down on the floor and I was like, wow, where am I right now? I asked the assistant principal her name and proceeded to write down this name, and I was yelled at, why are you writing this name? And I looked down and I was like, where am I? Should I leave? And then I thought, wait, I'm a school committee member. What, not why is somebody treating me like this? So I respond, the reason I asked for your name is because I'm a school committee member, and the way that you're approaching and you're speaking to me is not the proper way of speaking to somebody else. And after having that discussion about the proper way of speaking to somebody, I was told I should have introduced myself as a school committee member, which further angered me, and because that should not be the way that anybody's treated. And then at that point, I came for the wall. Now I wanted a tour of the school, because if the wall combined with this attitude, with this treatment of all these individuals, all these people that came before me, was enough for me to warrant an inspection of that building. And I say that not because I feel like the mayor's saying pointing fingers or anything, just because I want to make sure, Dr. Bergeron, that there is some accountability with all the schools. And I hope that as a district, I know Mrs. Cruz has said this time and time. I think at this point, I would like to see something within a month or something, just how, I'm not even, definitely accountability is part of it, but the other part is, how are we going to approach these other schools? Because if it happened to me and I'm wearing a suit and tie, and I'm speaking at the nicest way possible, I'm sure that it could happen to somebody else and to parents. And we need to put a system in place so that people understand how you should talk to people and how you should talk to individuals. And at every job that I worked at, I worked in food stamps for about 2 years. It didn't matter if someone yelled at me, screamed at me, everything. I had to say, thank you, sir, no, sir, and treat them, not in the way that they treated me. And that wasn't just training. That was also I knew that if any of them were to call somebody else, it'd be me on the line, not them. Because as an employee of the government, and I'm dealing with taxpayers, I have to treat the taxpayers like people and not like there's something else. So like Ms. Cruz said, you have to leave that attitude at home, even though it's hard to do so. So I hope and I expect to hear something. I'm not saying right now, within 2 weeks, but within a month, to hear how exactly we're going to be dealing with the district. And as far as the wall, I think, you know, going in there, we were confused about what happened. And I had thought in the beginning, maybe it was mold, maybe it was something else. So, you know, I asked, after we toured the school, if, you know, Dr. Bergeron knew about it, and the principal said no. And then one of the people with us was Counselor Oneida Aquino, and she asked, who's also an alumni of the school. So I called her and Danny Rivera, and Oneida rushed from her job and came to us. I'm appreciative of that. But she asked, okay, so when the work order was put into DPW, like, who approved that? And we found out that there was no work order that was put into DPW. So proper procedures weren't put in place. So also with that, like, I want to understand what happens when administrators don't go through proper procedures, and I hope to hear from, you know, from you, Dr. Bergeron, what would typically happen to a principal or administrator or anybody that does that. Because I think, I mean, that puts us, I mean, if the DPW, I don't know what those things were in place, but I'm sure that there's contracts that deal with that, and I'm surprised DPW hasn't said anything about why they weren't asked to do it. So I think that's another point, sort of like a legality, an administration management issue that I'm really confused about. So that's in difference from my earlier comments, which is like me feeling horrible that the wall was gone. Here's a school committee member. I think the people that came here talked very well about sort of the loss of the wall, the loss of history. I'm just here about procedures and things that I think, you know, someone coming out of any type of management course would understand. So as respect to that, we proceeded to, and just something I should mention is that all these panels were covered in plexiglass. And one of the things that I kept being asked, and, you know, the principal seems like a very nice person, but one of the things I kept being asked is that nobody knew that that was significant. Nobody knew that these drawings, these signatures dating back more than 20 years covered that were in front of plexiglass was significant to people. That people from my cousin was in that wall. You know, my teachers. I had a student, an alumni that came up to me that said, my mom was there. And I was hoping that one day I'd be able to take my daughter so she could see my name and her name and teach them about, like, the importance of graduating and moving forward, and that this wasn't used as a tool to get your 8th graders, your 5th graders, whatever it might be, to do that. But moving on from that, we continued to tour the school. And in touring the Oliver School, it was uncovered that the current conditions of the school are not ideal and should be improved. There seemed to be an oversight by the leadership in the school in creating an unsafe environment for the children. We also found that the school academics performance has taken a negative turn after a few years of improvement. And by this, I'm saying is there's a difference between there was a room where the ceiling was coming down. I think nobody has control over that. We definitely have to do a better job at trying to get the city to figure out a plan in fixing something like that. But some of the other things that we saw, I was extremely confused because I came in for a picture, and I came in and the tour was really just to see whether other drawings were painted. So what we saw was, I think, surprising to all of us. So in the next few slides, you're going to see some of those issues. So, and I think pictures, I mean, the image of this really sort of makes people understand more of what was going on. So this is just a room where, you know, wires were coming out, but the door wasn't closed. So in a K-8 building, anybody could have walked in there, and this is another room where, right next to each other, where there were bottles, chemicals for different janitors were using, and none of these doors were closed. And when we asked, you know, do you guys close the door? Does the door lock? The response that we got was, oh, I don't know. Let me see if I have a key, which to me means that this has been open since the start of the school year. And I'm just like, I mean, honestly, as a former alumni and a person that just wants to talk about positive of the city, I was just in a state of confusion and not showing what to go next. And we didn't leave that area until both of these doors were locked. So this is some of like what the state of some of the area at the high school looks like. And well, we'll go back to that. So you know, the mayor was talking. I think when we entered the cafeteria to look at the pictures, the mayor said, "Hey, what's up with all the trash on the stairs?" And we were told, "Oh, the trash came from a door that was open, and the trash came in." And to me, gullible as I am, I believe that. I was like, "Okay, makes sense. No big deal." And the mayor was like, "What about those cobwebs over there?" And I was like, "Whoa, why would somebody lie about that?" So there was, I don't have pictures of the cobwebs here, but there were tons of cobwebs all over the place. Misplaced fire extinguisher. We were told that the city had come in and taken out the fire extinguisher. And I'm a very trusting person, especially out of people that we put in power, educators, so I'm going to believe that. What I don't understand is the mess, the dirtiness that fire extinguisher, how you look at it now. It looks like it hadn't been cleaned in like a year. And it accumulated all that dirt, and you know, the thing was closed. And there's a fire extinguisher on the floor. I mean, and you know, just to, you know, I'll go back to the glass. The first image that I got when I stepped foot into the high school was the door, this blue door with this beautiful answer that was painted in, I think it was 1988, painted over, and graffiti on the door. And in my head, and this is before, I wasn't yet upset. I was just wondering, you know, and I thought I was going to solve this with an email. Why would somebody paint, you know, history, paint over history, but not use that extra paint to paint over the door? And I'm sure it's because if there's graffiti on the door, there's a proper procedure that you put in place where you ask permission to paint over the graffiti. And so for that, you know, if a principal came in here and said, you know what, we didn't do proper procedures, but we painted that graffiti, I'd be like, you know, I'm with you 110%. You make sure that got done. But when you don't paint over the graffiti, but you do paint over something that meant a lot for, you know, I mean, I don't even know what the number is, but more than 20 years of students graduating, it puts a question into what we're doing. Towards the end of the tour, we were walking up, I don't know if it was the first or second floor, and I literally tripped over something. And I was hanging on to, I was the first person, so I was leading the tour, and I tripped over something. I was hanging on to the railing. And I'm like, what in the world did I just trip over? And I look down, and there's this white things all over the place, and there's a cylinder looking thing. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like really confused. And about like 30 seconds later, somebody else comes through, and it's like, is that glass? And I'm like, why would glass be here? And we were told that it was a light bulb that fell from the ceiling. And at first, I'm like, oh my God, our light bulbs are falling? And then we heard that it happened the day before as well. And it turns out that it was a janitor that was knocking these light bulbs over. So I'm not even thinking I almost fell and got hurt by this glass, but I'm thinking, so if I was 6 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, and I was walking by there just a few moments ago, or I'm an employee and I'm walking by there a few moments ago, now we have a lawsuit in our hand. Now we have people that are in, you know, that we have to deal with. And it wasn't, you know, mistakes happen, things happen. It happened the day before, and the same janitor did it again. That to me is just like, it's just, okay, it happens once, all right, you can excuse it. Twice? So, I mean, I know in the beginning we were talking about accountability and we were talking about not pointing fingers, but I think we have to, people have to be held accountable for their actions. If they're not held accountable for their actions, then the entire system is just going to go. You know, then if glass is falling from the ceiling and nothing happens to me, and the principal's not on it, and nobody's on the principal for not being on it, then what's to say that it's not going to happen again, and it's not going to happen to somebody else? And when ceiling tiles, I mean, there's only so much you can do. So but that just shows that there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And I think as a school committee, we really need to start going. The Oliver and the SES wasn't one of my schools, but we need to start just doing sort of some of these tours with each other, unplanned tours, just going in there, or having people, go in there just to find out what's going on. Just to, put people on their tippy toes, that maybe the next person that they're dealing with is someone from the public schools or somebody from the school committee. I'm pretty sure that now on people are going to know who I am, so going into the school, it might be harder to see how I'd be treated as a regular person. But I think we need to think of things like that, and I would suggest to the school committee that next month we do something similar. This is one of the good things that we found. So this was a beautiful picture of President John F. Kennedy that was painted, I think, in 1964. That was in this area where there was like just dust, a bunch of bottles of chemicals. Like, I was even confused surprised at how it was there, and that was never brought forward. But that's something we were able to rescue, and hopefully would be able to at one point bring back to the school. Another thing that I would like to take a look at, which goes kind of into the place of why this wall was important, but cleaning your floors, cleaning the graffiti on the door, cleaning, making sure that the janitors were held accountable, which is just simple management and managing your janitors and just doing a tour yourself, is the MCAS scores, which just came out a few days ago. We look at 5th grade English, and we see a jump from 16% to 32% under warning in the past 2 years. 5th grade math, we see a jump from 32% to 51% in just the last year. 5th grade science, we see a jump of 31% to 53% in the last 2 years. So, I think this is a combination of all sorts of different things. And when I left the tour, I think I left in good standing in the sense that, I thought things were going to be done. Because when my boss says, Pavel, you did X, Y, Z wrong, you know what? By the next day, I send him an email being like, hey, guess what? I fixed X, Y, Z. Or I did X, Y, I'm working on Z. Or if I treated somebody wrong and proper etiquette says you have to treat them differently, I would have expected an apology. Not just to myself, but to the other people that came in through that door. An apology saying, you know what, I wasn't thinking when the wall was painted. I did this incorrectly. I should have followed proper procedure, and I'm sorry. None of that was done. And I think, an I'm sorry goes a long way to establishing sort of the trust that I had before, because when I went in, it was just trust. And I think when I spoke to the assistant principal, she understood, after, me announcing myself as a school committee member and saying, hey, it should be done professionally. She agreed. She was like, I didn't hear an apology, but I knew she understood that it should have been handled a better way. And I'm hoping from you, Dr. Bergeron, because you are, you're a superintendent and you are the manager of everybody, else here, that there is something that you can tell us besides, because that email was great that you were able to respond to us, very quickly. But I'm looking for more than, the principal didn't mean to do this, didn't mean to offend people. I want to hear, this is how we're going to work on so it doesn't happen again. I want to hear how we're going to be able to fix this school. What do we need? What do we need to get the crosswalks fixed in front of the Oliver? And also on a district level, just to repeat that again, because I'm so adamant about that, there has to be something put in place so that people are not just held accountable, but so that they understand how you speak to your residents, your taxpayers, everybody that's out there in the proper way, as if they were human beings themselves. Because to be honest with you, my sister, she came out of there, and I'm super proud of her. Because if I was a school committee member, I would have been so angry I just would have walked away. And you would have lost somebody. And the difference between leadership, I think that, I spoke with 2 individuals that went to the Bruce yesterday, and they were able to talk to the principal. And you know, in my conversations with myself and other people in the room, they were talking about how they should be involved with the Bruce, how they should help fix the park, how they should help, you know, that principal sort of move their standings. Now, I don't know if those individuals will follow through, but that's very different from the response that I was getting from probably hundreds of alumni that were either saying, yeah, you know, that's why I don't live in the city, or, you know what, I should move out of the city because I'm not feeling respected. And I think a lot has to be done from the school department. And I think it has to, I mean, I'm right there. I'm willing to do whatever needs to be done, but it has to come from the public schools as far as what we're going to do to fix this. I think, you know, we have a Lawrence High School. We have to promote Lawrence pride. We have to promote, you know, the idea that I'm not, I mean, because I was told to me as well, this isn't Lawrence High School. You know what? You know, it's exactly what I said. From I think it was 1901 to 2010, it was Lawrence High School. Robert Frost walked those walls. Our school anthem was created by Robert Frost. That's Lawrence High School. It's the Oliver and the SES, but anybody that graduated from there, that's Lawrence High School. And when you have Lawrence, you have any type of alum from the public schools or any type of resident say they want to give back, I would hope that there's a system put in place to do that. And I'm saying a lot, and I guess what I'm saying is I hope there's a report back, you know, within a month, you know, 2 meetings from now, saying what steps we're going to take to accomplish that. I think one of the, you know, as far as going back to the wall, it was painted over. As far as that, we can't bring back the names, but I think we can work on, and I would say something that I've been hearing is not necessarily work out with the alumni association, but with these alumni that weren't part of these governing groups, but now want to be involved. And if we can figure out a way to put them involved and get them connected, maybe a new mural can be created, whether it's at the old Lawrence High School, at the new Lawrence High School, or both. Maybe something can be created and a new tradition could be started to incorporate the new high school members. And I hope that we can work with that in the future, because I think there's a lot of people here that are motivated to be a part of that. And I think we see dozens of people being involved. And also, I would like to see us use this Lancer pride, this LHS pride, this Lawrence pride to really move the city forward. And so that when the kids graduate, they think that Lawrence is a place to come back to. So that means if we're going to be launching this, I know I've said this before, but and it's easy to do. Anybody that has any type of IT background can do this. Let's just have the school, the caps, the uniforms, all this Lancer alumni stuff, let's have that online. So that way, all these alumni, and there's tons and tons of alumni, thousands of alumni that don't live in the city, because for one reason or another, they felt like the city wasn't treating them well. But you know something, if the school reaches to them, they'll be there. And who knows, maybe with this type of work, in 5, 10 years, this city will change and it'd be a different city. And I think as a public schools, we have the opportunity to use this negative thing as something to create something incredibly positive. And I put myself on the person to blame as well, just because, you know, I didn't think that I would needed to say that this was covered with plexiglass, that was important. I thought that was enough. But maybe I shouldn't have been so trustworthy. Guys, thank you for your time.